The studio existed in that rare space where time seemed to stretch, where anticipation hummed like a quiet electrical current beneath every surface. Lights floated overhead in careful symmetry, casting a warm glow that softened edges and polished expressions. The live audience filled the tiered seating, their energy layered, curiosity in the front rows, excitement rippling outward, a shared sense that something memorable might unfold. Cameras rested on cranes like patient birds, lenses adjusting with gentle whirs as producers murmured into headsets. At center stage sat two chairs angled slightly toward each other, separated by a low glass table that reflected the lights above like a calm, waiting pool. One guest entered with an unhurried stride, composed and thoughtful, carrying the weight of decades of storytelling in the way he paused before sitting, acknowledging the audience with a measured nod. The other followed moments later, animated and bright-eyed, offering quick smiles that traveled across the crowd, her gestures lively and expressive, as though conversation itself were a performance she delighted in shaping. From the opening exchange, the contrast was subtle but present. One voice calm and deliberate, the other quick and curious, overlapping at times, not out of rudeness but rhythm. The host's questions floated easily at first, touching on art, legacy, and the craft of performance, yet small misunderstandings slipped between sentences. An interrupted pause here, a response that landed a fraction of a second too late there. The cameras caught raised eyebrows, a brief tightening of a smile, a thoughtful inhale before a reply. Audience members leaned forward almost instinctively, sensing the shift in tone without quite knowing why. Behind the scenes, a producer signaled for an extra camera angle, capturing reactions as much as words. The tension never sharpened into hostility. Instead, it grew like a held breath, shaped by contrasting tempos and expectations. Laughter surfaced, then faded more quickly than usual. A question lingered just a beat too long before being answered, and in that pause, the room seemed to tilt, balanced delicately between ease and uncertainty. As the segment continued, the energy climbed, not loud or chaotic, but focused, attentive, as if everyone present understood they were approaching a moment that would define the conversation. The paragraph ended with both figures mid-thought, eyes meeting under the bright studio lights, the audience silent and waiting, the peak of anticipation hovering just before release. The moment unfolded not with raised voices, but with clarity born from friction. Words crossed paths again, not colliding, but weaving, each speaker trying to honor their own cadence while adjusting to the others. A comment intended as reflective landed unexpectedly, prompting a surprised reaction. Eyes widening, a soft gasp from somewhere in the crowd. The crew shifted, one camera zooming in to capture a thoughtful expression, another cutting to the audience as murmurs rolled like a gentle wave. Dialogue flowed faster now, still respectful, yet charged with emotion, shaped by years of experience, meeting spontaneous commentary. A brief overlap of voices created a spark, the kind that makes a room feel alive. Then came a pause, intentional this time. One guest leaned back slightly, hands resting calmly, offering space. The other took it, clarifying her point with warmth, acknowledging the difference in perspective rather than pressing it. Applause broke out, tentative at first, then stronger as understanding replaced uncertainty. The tension softened into something richer, mutual recognition. The cameras captured nods, small smiles returning, shoulders easing. Laughter followed, genuine and shared, dissolving the last traces of unease. The host guided the conversation toward reflection, highlighting how differing styles can illuminate the same subject from new angles. As the segment drew to a close, the audience rose in applause, not for a victory or defeat, but for the rare authenticity of a live moment navigated with grace. The lights dimmed slightly, music swelled, and the two guests exchanged a final look, one of respect, acknowledgement, and quiet satisfaction. The broadcast faded out on that image, leaving viewers with a sense of completion, the kind that lingers long after the screen goes dark, cinematic, balanced, and safely rooted in fiction. The instant stretched as though the studio itself had decided to listen more closely. What followed was not an eruption, but a carefully layered exchange shaped by timing, tone, and the awareness of millions watching from beyond the lights. One voice resumed first, slower now, each word placed with intention, clarifying a thought that had arrived too quickly before. The other responded with a nod and a half-smile, signaling understanding even before speaking, her reply lighter but precise, threading humor with reflection. The audience reacted in waves, soft murmurs, a few surprised laughs, the kind that rise when tension transforms rather than breaks. A camera slid into a close-up, capturing the subtle shift in posture, shoulders relaxing, hands opening, eye contact steady instead of searching. The production team, alert moments earlier, eased back into rhythm, cues flowing smoothly again through headsets. Dialogue continued, no longer overlapping but alternating, each response building on the last, turning contrast into texture. An anecdote was shared, not to win a point, but to offer context, and it landed gently, drawing appreciative applause. The other guest followed with her own story, acknowledging the difference in approach while celebrating the shared love of storytelling. Gasps turned to smiles, smiles turned to laughter. The energy in the room lifted, brighter now, fuller, as if the audience had been invited into something honest and rare. The host guided the conversation toward reflection, framing the exchange as an example of how perspectives can meet without diminishing one another. As the segment reached its close, applause swelled, confident, sustained, grateful. The two guests exchanged a warm glance, then a brief handshake that spoke of mutual respect rather than resolution of conflict. Lights softened, music rose, and the cameras pulled back to reveal a studio unified again, buzzing not with tension, but with appreciation. The moment ended, not as a clash remembered for friction, but as a live encounter remembered for grace, balance, and the quiet power of understanding, as the broadcast moved into its final stretch. The atmosphere carried a reflective calm, the kind that follows a meaningful exchange rather than a spectacle. The audience settled back into their seats, attentive and warm, aware they had witnessed something unscripted, yet thoughtfully navigated. One guest offered a closing remark that sounded less like a conclusion and more like an invitation to keep conversations open, to value patience over speed. The other responded with an appreciative nod, adding a brief insight that reframed the earlier tension as a natural result of passion meeting perspective. The host smiled, sensing the arc of the moment, and gently steered the dialogue toward shared ground: creativity, curiosity, and the enduring value of listening. Cameras captured small details: the soft exhale before a final sentence, a glance toward the audience, a quiet laugh that eased the room even further. Applause returned, steady and sincere, filling the studio without overwhelming it. Behind the scenes, the crew exchanged relieved smiles as the countdown to the segment's end ticked away. When the sign-off arrived, the lights warmed, music swelled, and the guests stood, exchanging a friendly word and a respectful gesture before exiting opposite sides of the stage. The screen faded on a wide shot of the studio glowing with completion, leaving viewers with a sense of closure and balance, an ending that felt cinematic, respectful, and safely rooted in fiction, lingering not for controversy, but for the way understanding quietly won the night.